Welcome to our deep dive, where we'll be exploring the fascinating world of human behavior.
Oh, yeah.
And to guide us through this complex landscape, we'll be turning to Robert Sapolsky's book, Behave, The Biology of Humans at Our Best and Worst.
A fantastic choice.
Sapolsky, he's a primatologist and a neuroscientist.
Right.
And in this book, he really digs deep into all the factors that make us who we are.
It's a really compelling read.
So excited to delve into this with you today.
Me too.
So, one of the things that struck me right away about Sapolsky's approach is this layered lens he uses to look at behavior.
Yeah, absolutely.
He takes us from, those split-second reactions in our nervous system
Mm.
all the way back to, the evolutionary pressures that have shaped us over millions of years.
It's really mind-blowing when you think about it.
So how does he connect these two extremes?
Well, he uses this really clever example.
Okay.
Imagine you see a chicken crossing the road.
Okay, classic.
The question is, why did the chicken cross the road?
Right.
If you ask a neuroscientist,
Yeah.
they might talk about the chicken's brain,
Okay.
how it processed the sight of the other side of the road and triggered the actions needed to cross it.
So it's all about neurons firing and signals being sent.
Exactly.
Got it.
But if you were to ask an endocrinologist,
Okay.
they might say, well, maybe this chicken's a hen,
Yeah.
and her estrogen levels are making her respond to a rooster's call on the other side.
So hormones enter the picture,
Exactly.
adding a whole other layer.
Another layer to the explanation.
What about somebody who studies evolution?
Oh, an evolutionary biologist.
Yeah.
They'd probably say something like, over millions of years, chickens that responded to mating calls when they were fertile had more chicks.
Right.
And those chicks inherited that same tendency,
So it becomes instinct.
passed down through the generations.
Wow. So you've got the brain's immediate response, the influence of hormones, and this, the long-term effects of evolution.
Yeah.
All shaping this one simple action
It's amazing, isn't it?
of a chicken crossing the road.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
It really highlights that behavior isn't just one thing, it's this web of influences.
Right.
And that's what Sapolsky keeps reminding us to understand human behavior. We need to think about all these layers, from our biology to our social environment and even our evolutionary past.
It's not just nature or nurture, it's this incredible interplay between the two.
Right.
It's this, it's recognizing that we are animals shaped by evolution just like any other species.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's really interesting to think about how many biological mechanisms we share with other animals.
It is fascinating.
When we feel stressed, we release the same hormones as a fish being bullied.
It's true.
When we experience pleasure, the same brain chemicals are at work as in a capybara.
Yeah, we may seem very different on the surface, but
It's amazing how much we have in common.
we share a lot.
Yeah, but of course there are things that make us uniquely human, our capacity for language,
Of course.
complex thought, and culture. And that's where Sapolsky's exploration gets even more fascinating, because he shows how these uniquely human traits
Yes.
interact with our more primal instincts.
It creates a fascinating tapestry.
This complex tapestry of behavior.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have this layered approach in mind.
Mm-hmm.
Where do we begin to unpack the biology of behavior itself?
Well, Sapolsky suggests we start with what happens in the brain just before we act.
Okay.
He asks, a behavior has occurred, one that is reprehensible or wonderful, or somewhere in between.
Okay.
What occurred in the prior second that triggered the behavior?
So we're talking about the nervous system, the control center of our actions.
Precisely.
Yep.
Think of it as a rapid-fire chain reaction of electrical and chemical signals,
Yeah.
an intricate dance of neurons and neurotransmitters.
It's incredible to think that all of our actions, from the simplest reflex to the most complex decision,
I know.
originate in this network of tiny cells.
It's really quite remarkable.
It is, and within the brain, there's this constant interplay between the areas involved in emotion and those responsible for our higher level thinking.
Yes.
Sapolsky talks about the tug of war
Yeah.
between the frontal cortex,
Oh.
which is like the CEO of our brains,
Right.
and the limbic system, which is responsible for our emotions and drives.
Yeah, or more primal urges.
So it's like our rational side is battling it out with our gut feelings.
In a sense, yes. And a key player in this battle is the amygdala, the brain's alarm system.
Okay.
When we perceive a threat, the amygdala triggers the fight-or-flight response,
Right.
getting us ready to either fight or flee.
That's that feeling of, your heart racing your palms, sweating your body on high alert.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the frontal cortex,
Uh-huh.
specifically the prefrontal cortex, can step in and regulate that automatic fear response.
Okay.
Let's say you're walking in the woods and see a snake.
Yeah.
Your amygdala screams danger. But your frontal cortex might assess the situation and realize it's a harmless garter snake, not a venomous rattlesnake.
So the frontal cortex is like the voice of reason telling us to calm down
Exactly.
and think things through.
It steps in and says, hold on a second.
Okay, but there are times when our gut feelings do seem to guide our decisions.
That's right.
And that's where this fascinating area called the ventromedial prefrontal cortex
The VMPFC
comes in. It's like the bridge between our rational and emotional brains,
It is.
helping us, incorporate our feelings into our choices.
Yeah, it helps us evaluate those options and predict their emotional consequences.
So it's not just about cold logic, it's about taking into account how different options make us feel.
Precisely. And here's where it gets really interesting. Studies have shown that damage to the VMTFC can lead to people making what are called utilitarian moral judgments.
Utilitarian, what does that mean?
It means they tend to focus more on the overall outcome,
Okay.
even if it means making a difficult choice that might harm someone. It's like in that classic thought experiment, the trolley problem,
Right.
where you have to choose between letting a trolley kill 5 people
Yeah.
or pulling a lever to divert it and kill just 1 person.
Right.
People with VMPFC damage are more likely to choose to sacrifice the 1 person to save the 5.
That's really thought-provoking.
It is, isn't it?
So even our moral judgments, something we often consider to be, purely rational, are influenced by this
Yeah.
interplay of different brain regions and the emotions they process.
Exactly. It shows just how complex and intertwined our mental processes truly are.
So the brain is this incredibly complex system
It is a symphony of activity.
with different regions playing different roles in shaping our behavior.
Right.
What about hormones? How do they fit into this picture?
Hormones. The chemical messengers.
Yeah, I always hear that testosterone equals aggression.
Right.
Is that really true?
That's a common misconception.
Okay.
But Sapolsky really debunks that myth.
Okay.
He shows that hormones like testosterone don't work in such a simple way.
Right.
It's not a direct cause and effect relationship.
Okay, so if it's not a simple equation, how does testosterone actually influence behavior?
It's more about amplifying existing tendencies than creating new ones.
Okay.
Let's say 2 people are playing a competitive game.
Mm-hmm.
One person naturally has higher testosterone levels than the other.
Okay.
Does that guarantee they'll be more aggressive?
I guess not.
Not necessarily.
So it's not just about the hormone itself, it's about how it interacts with the situation.
Exactly.
Got it.
Testosterone might make someone more sensitive to challenges to their social status.
Okay.
So if that game feels like a threat to their status,
Mm-hmm.
their higher testosterone might make them react more aggressively.
Okay.
But it's just a friendly game.
Yeah.
Their testosterone levels might not have a noticeable effect on their behavior.
So testosterone isn't the aggression hormone. It's
Right.
often made out to be.
It's more nuanced than that.
It's more like an amplifier, and
Yep.
its effects really depend on the social context and an individual's personality.
Yep.
It seems like we're starting to see a pattern here.
What's that?
It's not just about nature or nurture.
Right.
It's about this complex dance between the two.
The interplay.
Our biology influences our behavior,
Uh-huh.
but our experiences and the environment we're in also shape how that biology plays out.
Absolutely. It's a two-way street.
And this dance becomes even more intricate when we consider hormones like oxytocin and vasopressin.
Ah, yes, the love hormones.
Right.
They often get a lot of hype.
I've heard so much about how they promote bonding and trust,
Uh-huh.
make us feel all warm and fuzzy.
Right, that's the popular image.
Yeah.
But like with testosterone, the reality is much more nuanced.
Okay.
While oxytocin and vasopressin are certainly involved in social bonding
Mm-hmm.
and pro-social behavior,
Yeah.
their effects are also heavily influenced by the context.
So they're not just simple love potions that make everyone feel cuddly.
Not quite. They influence our social behavior in complex ways.
Okay.
For example, oxytocin can strengthen the bond between a mother and her infant,
Right.
which is essential for survival.
Makes sense.
But it can also increase in-group bias
Okay.
and hostility towards outsiders.
Wait, so the same hormone that promotes motherly love
Yes.
can also fuel prejudice?
It's a powerful illustration of how context matters.
It's so interesting. So it's like these hormones amplify our social connections.
Yeah.
But they can also intensify the lines we draw between us and them.
Precisely, they show how even our most basic biological drives
Right.
can be intertwined with our social perceptions and the cultural context we're in.
So it's like a feedback loop.
Yeah.
Our biology influences our behavior, but our environment and experiences also shape how that biology expresses itself.
You got it.
And this interplay between nature and nurture extends even further, all the way to the subconscious level.
The subconscious, a fascinating realm.
Yeah, you mean like those messages flashed on a screen too quickly for us to consciously see?
Yes, but it goes beyond that. Our brains are constantly picking up on subtle cues in our environment, things we might not even be aware of.
Okay.
And these cues can have a surprising impact on our thoughts and actions.
So even things we don't consciously perceive can influence our behavior.
That's right.
That's a bit unsettling.
It can be, but it's also incredibly fascinating.
Okay.
For instance, studies have shown that even subliminal exposure to faces of a different race
Uh-huh.
can activate the amygdala, the brain's fear center,
Wow.
even when people aren't consciously aware of seeing those faces.
So our brains are reacting to these subtle cues even when we're completely unaware of them.
Exactly. And that highlights just how powerful the subconscious can be.
Yeah.
But here's the good news. Conscious processing can help regulate that automatic fear response.
Okay, so even though these things are happening beneath the surface,
Yes.
we can use our conscious minds to override those unconscious biases.
To a certain extent, yes. When we become aware of these biases,
Okay.
we can engage our frontal cortex to inhibit those knee-jerk reactions.
It's like shining a light on those hidden processes
Ex-
and choosing a different path.
We have the power to make conscious choices.
That's reassuring to know.
It is.
But it seems like our brains are constantly bombarded with information, both conscious and unconscious.
It's a lot to process.
And we're trying to make sense of it all
Yeah.
and navigate this complex world.
Right.
It's a delicate balance between our automatic responses and our conscious choices.
It's a constant dance.
And this interplay becomes even more intricate when we add the layer of genes and how they interact with our environment to shape who we are.
Yes, the nature versus nurture debate.
Right. But I have a feeling Sapolsky doesn't see it as a simple either situation.
You're right. He emphasizes that genes don't determine our destiny.
Okay.
They create potentials and vulnerabilities that can be influenced by our experiences.
So it's like our genes provide the blueprint,
Yes.
but our experiences shape how that blueprint is expressed.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay.
Imagine our genes are like a light switch.
Okay.
Epigenetics, which is the study of how environment affects gene expression.
Yeah.
It's like the dimmer that controls how bright the light shines.
Okay.
Our experiences can turn the dimmer up or down,
Interesting.
influencing how strongly our genes are expressed.
So our experiences are literally changing how our genes work.
Yes, and it's a really dynamic process. A great example of this is in prairie voles.
Okay.
When they mate, it actually triggers epigenetic changes that promote pair bonding.
So their experiences are literally shaping their biology, making them more likely to stay together.
Exactly, and it highlights how fluid and dynamic this relationship between genes and the environment can be.
Wow.
It's not just about the genes we inherit, it's about how those genes are turned on or off, amplified or suppressed
Right.
based on what we experience.
So it seems like our experiences, especially in early childhood, could have a profound impact on how our genes are expressed.
Absolutely.
And ultimately who we become.
And Sapolsky really drives that point home.
Okay.
He delves into how adversity in childhood can have lasting effects on brain development and behavior.
So it's not just about nature or nurture, it's about this intricate dance between the two.
The dance of life.
Yeah. Our genes provide the building blocks,
Raw materials.
but our environment and experiences determine how those blocks are assembled.
And that assembly process is ongoing throughout our lives.
And this dance even extends to our sense of morality.
Morality, oh, it's a fascinating topic.
Right, we often think of morality as this rational decision-making process.
Uh-huh.
But Sapolsky suggests it's much more complex than that.
He does, and that's what we'll be exploring in the next part of this deep dive.
Okay.
How our biology and our environment come together to shape even our most deeply held beliefs and values. So, picking up where we left off, let's look at how millions of years of evolution have shaped our behavior as discussed in Behave.
Okay.
Sapolsky, he really brings the science of evolution to life.
Yeah.
showing us how genes aren't just these static blueprints, but dynamic instructions
Huh.
that are constantly being tweaked by the environment.
It's wild to think that evolution, a process that takes place over such a vast time scale,
I know, it's mind-boggling.
could still be influencing our everyday actions.
Right.
Like in this very moment. How does he even begin to explain that connection?
He reminds us that, as Theodosius Dobzhansky famously said,
Okay.
nothing in biology makes sense except in the light of evolution.
Okay.
He goes on to explain that, there are 3 basic steps to how evolution works.
Okay, I'm ready for a little crash course in evolution.
Okay.
Hit me with those 3 steps.
So first, you've got traits that are passed down through genes.
Okay.
Second, those genes can change through mutations and recombination, creating variations in those traits.
Okay.
And third, some of those variations actually help an organism reproduce more successfully.
Uh-huh.
That means those genes become more common over time because they're the ones getting passed down to future generations.
So it's survival of the fittest.
Well,
The strongest and most adaptable survive and pass on their genes.
it's not just about survival. It's about reproductive success.
Okay.
An organism could live a long and healthy life.
Right.
But if it doesn't reproduce, its genes disappear from the gene pool.
Ah. So it's really about...
The real winners in the evolutionary game are the ones who pass on their genes to the next generation.
It makes sense from a genetic perspective.
Yeah.
The focus is on those genes replicating and spreading.
Exactly. And that brings us to the concept of individual selection.
Okay.
It suggests that behaviors that help an individual reproduce and pass on their genes
Uh-huh.
are the ones that are most likely to stick around over time.
Can you give me like a real-world example of that?
Sure. Picture a zebra being chased by a lion.
Okay.
The zebra that stops to sacrifice itself for the good of the herd
Yeah.
might be a hero, but its genes are gone.
Right.
It's the zebra that runs for its life that gets to reproduce and pass on those runaway genes.
So from an evolutionary standpoint, it makes sense to be a little selfish.
Well, not always. Sapolsky explains that even altruism, like a parent sacrificing for their offspring,
Okay.
can be explained through the lens of individual selection.
So how does that work if I'm giving up my own chance to reproduce?
Yeah.
How does that help my genes?
Because relatives share genes.
Okay.
Even if you don't have offspring yourself,
Uh-huh.
if you help your siblings or cousins raise their young, you're still indirectly passing on some of your genes.
It's like spreading the risk,
Yeah,
making sure at least some of your genes make it into the next generation.
precisely. And then we've got another fascinating twist on this idea
Okay.
called reciprocal altruism.
Okay.
It's about cooperating with individuals who aren't your relatives,
Okay.
even if it means giving up something in the short term,
Right.
with the expectation that they'll return the favor down the line.
Like I'll scratch your back if you scratch mine.
Got
That playing out over generations.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Sapolsky talks about this classic thought experiment called the prisoner's dilemma,
Okay.
which illustrates this idea perfectly. Okay.
Imagine 2 people are arrested for a crime
Uh-huh.
and they're given a choice. Cooperate and stay silent or betray each other.
Okay. I'm intrigued what happens depending on what they choose.
If they both stay silent,
Yeah.
they each get a lighter sentence.
Okay.
If one rats the other out while the other stays silent,
Yeah.
the betrayer goes free
Okay.
and the silent one gets a heavy sentence.
Wow.
And if they both betray each other, they both get a moderate sentence.
So what's the best strategy?
Well,
Yeah.
if you're thinking purely about your own self-interest,
Uh-huh.
betraying your partner is always the best move,
Okay.
no matter what they do. But here's the thing. If they play this game over and over,
Yeah.
they learn that cooperation actually leads to better outcomes for both of them in the long run.
So even between strangers working together can be more advantageous
Yes.
than constantly trying to outsmart each other.
Exactly. And that's how reciprocal altruism can evolve.
Interesting.
It's about building trust and a reputation for fairness.
Which ultimately leads to more successful collaborations and a higher chance of passing on those cooperative genes.
So cooperation has played a vital role in our evolutionary success as a species.
Absolutely.
It's what allowed us to, build communities and societies.
Sapolsky really drives home the point that our ability to cooperate with each other,
Yeah,
even with people we aren't related to,
right.
has allowed us to achieve some truly remarkable things.
It's pretty amazing when you think about it.
It sets us apart from many other species.
I mean, so much of human society relies on cooperation, from global trade
Right.
to simply getting along with our neighbors.
It does, and that deep-rooted tendency for cooperation,
Yeah.
according to Sapolsky, is closely tied to our sense of morality.
Okay.
He argues that morality isn't just about these abstract rules,
Right.
but also about the social and emotional forces that connect us as human beings.
It seems like emotions play a bigger role in our moral judgments than we often realize.
I agree.
It's not always about cold, hard logic.
Right, and a really fascinating example of this is Jonathan Haidt's moral foundations theory.
Oh, yeah, we touched on that earlier.
We did.
Can you refresh my memory on that theory?
Sure, Haidt suggests that our moral compass is actually made up of 5 core values:
Okay.
care harm,
Okay.
fairness cheating, loyalty betrayal, authority subversion,
Got it.
and sanctity degradation.
It's like having 5 different points on our moral compass,
Yeah,
guiding our sense of right and wrong.
exactly. And what's interesting is that different cultures might place more emphasis on certain points on this compass than others.
Okay.
For example, in some cultures, loyalty to your family or group
Okay.
is considered the most important value, even if it sometimes means bending the rules of fairness.
Okay.
In other cultures, fairness and justice
Yeah.
might be the top priority, even if it means questioning authority.
That explains why discussions about morality can get so heated.
Oh, yeah.
People might be approaching the issue with completely different moral frameworks.
Exactly. And those frameworks are shaped not just by rational thought,
Uh-huh.
but also by our emotions, our gut feelings, and the culture we were raised in.
It makes you wonder how much of what we consider right or wrong is truly based on objective principles,
It's a big question.
and how much is influenced by the norms of our society.
It's a great question. And Sapolsky doesn't shy away from those tough questions.
Right.
He explores how our moral judgments are influenced by everything from our genes and brain chemistry
Mm-hmm.
to the social environment we live in and the values our culture teaches us.
So maybe there isn't one simple answer to the question of what's truly right or wrong. It's all
Not
relative.
necessarily, but understanding how our biology and our social experiences work together to shape our moral intuitions
Yeah.
can help us have more nuanced and compassionate conversations about these complex issues.
It's about recognizing that even our most deeply held beliefs are influenced by this intricate interplay of factors.
Exactly. And that recognition can create space for greater understanding and empathy, even across cultural divides.
This is all incredibly thought-provoking.
It is.
It's like we're peeling back the layers of our own minds
Yeah.
and discovering all these hidden mechanisms
Right.
that drive our behavior.
It is fascinating.
Yeah.
And as we delve deeper into Sapolsky's book, we start to see how he challenges some common assumptions about human nature.
Like what?
For example, he tackles the idea that we're inherently selfish and competitive, driven by this primal urge to dominate others.
It's the survival of the fittest idea applied to human behavior.
Right. But Sapolsky argues that this view is too simplistic.
Okay.
He presents a ton of evidence for our capacity for cooperation, altruism, even self-sacrifice.
So we're not just selfish brutes.
He emphasizes how we've evolved to be incredibly social creatures,
Okay.
capable of forming strong bonds and working together for the common good.
So there's more to the story.
Much more. Sapolsky points out that our evolutionary history
Mm-hmm.
has equipped us with both selfish and altruistic tendencies.
Okay.
It's a delicate balance,
Right.
and the situation often determines which tendency wins out.
It seems like we're coming back to that recurring theme.
What's that?
It's not nature versus nurture.
The interplay.
It's about this complex interplay between our biology and our environment.
Exactly. Our genes provide the basic building blocks,
Yeah.
but our experiences, our culture,
Right?
even random events in our lives all contribute to shaping who we are.
It makes you think about all the different threads
Yeah.
that have woven together to create your own personality and behavior, from the genes you inherited
Right.
to the family you grew up in and the choices you've made along the way.
It's a tapestry, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
A unique blend of influences that makes each of us who we are.
It is.
And that's what makes human behavior so fascinating to study.
Yeah.
There's no single answer, no one-size-fits-all explanation.
Right.
It's a multifaceted phenomenon
It really is.
that requires us to look at it from multiple perspectives to truly understand it.
And Sapolsky's book really embraces that multidisciplinary approach,
He does.
weaving together insights from all of these different fields
It's really impressive.
to paint a more complete picture of human behavior.
Yeah, he brings together evolutionary biology,
Oh.
neuroscience, endocrinology, psychology, even anthropology
Wow.
to create this rich exploration of the forces that drive our actions.
It sounds like a grand unified theory of human behavior.
In a way, yes, but it's not about reducing us to simple equations
Right.
or trying to predict our every move.
Okay.
It's about appreciating the complexity and nuance of human nature,
Yeah.
acknowledging both our capacity for incredible good and our potential for destructive behavior.
It makes you reflect on all the things we've discussed,
Right.
from the amygdala's role in triggering fear to the interplay of hormones and social cues that shape our reactions to the world.
It's a lot to process,
It is.
but it all fits together. Our brains, our bodies,
Yeah.
and our behaviors are constantly interacting and influencing each other, responding to our environment and
Yeah.
shaping our experiences.
It's like this incredible feedback loop
It is a loop.
where our biology influences our behavior, and then our behavior in turn shapes our biology.
Precisely. And this feedback loop is always in motion,
Ah.
constantly adapting to new challenges and shaping the course of human history.
It's both humbling and empowering.
It is.
Realize how much we're shaped by and shaping the world around us.
And as we move into the final part of our deep dive,
Okay.
we'll see how Sapolsky brings all of these insights together to offer a perspective on the challenges and opportunities we face as a species in the 21st century.
So we've been on this incredible journey, exploring the biological underpinnings of human behavior.
Yeah, it's been quite a ride.
Now let's dive into some of the more challenging aspects of this topic, like violence.
Okay.
Sapolsky, he doesn't shy away from these tough questions and behave.
No, he doesn't.
In fact, he argues that, if we truly want to create a more peaceful future, we have to understand where violence comes from.
Absolutely.
He makes a pretty compelling case for that.
He does.
And one of the first things he does is challenge this common misconception
Uh-huh.
that violence has been steadily increasing throughout human history.
Right. The common narrative.
He actually argues, building on the work of Steven Pinker,
Yeah.
that violence has significantly declined over the centuries.
A fascinating perspective.
Wait, really? That seems counterintuitive,
I know it does.
given, all the wars and conflict we see on the news every day.
It's easy to feel that way, but Sapolsky points out that we need to look at the bigger picture.
Okay.
Yes, the 20th century was marked by horrific events like world wars and genocides,
Right.
but if you adjust for population size, the rate of violence was actually lower than in many earlier periods.
So it's not that violence has vanished, it's more like it's become less common as a percentage of the population.
Exactly.
Okay.
And Sapolsky suggests this decline is due to a number of factors,
Like what?
including the rise of nation-states, the spread of literacy and education, increased global interconnectedness through trade and technology,
Right.
and a growing recognition of human rights.
It's a perspective that, it offers some hope.
It does.
It suggests we are capable of progress,
Yeah.
even though, we have these primal instincts for aggression and conflict.
Right. We're not just slaves to our biology.
So if violence isn't inevitable,
Yeah.
what are the forces that, that drive us to harm each other?
That's the million-dollar question.
Yeah. What does Sapolsky have to say about that?
Well, he digs into a whole range of factors, from the neurological and hormonal mechanisms
Right.
that underlie aggression
Uh-huh.
to the social, cultural, and environmental conditions
Okay.
that can amplify or suppress those tendencies.
Okay.
He reminds us how easily our brains categorize people into us and them,
Right.
and how that can lead to fear and distrust of those we perceive as outsiders.
It's like our ancient survival mechanisms misfiring in the modern world.
Yeah, in a way.
Like we see threats where none really exist.
It's part of the puzzle,
Hmm.
but Sapolsky doesn't just focus on the negative.
Okay.
He also highlights our amazing capacity for empathy and compassion.
Yeah.
He even discusses the Christmas truce of 1914 during World War I,
Oh, yeah.
when soldiers on opposing sides spontaneously stopped fighting to celebrate together.
It's an incredible story.
They shared food, sang carols, and even played soccer.
It shows that even in the midst of war, a
Yeah.
sense of shared humanity can emerge.
It's a powerful reminder of our capacity for good.
So we have this capacity for both violence and compassion.
We do.
It's like two sides of the same coin.
It is,
Yeah.
which brings us to the question, what can we do to foster more of that compassion?
Right.
Create a more peaceful world?
That feels like the biggest challenge we face as a species.
It might be.
Does Sapolsky offer any guidance on how we might tackle that?
Well, he offers some thought-provoking insights.
Okay.
He suggests that education is key,
Yeah.
along with promoting empathy and emphasizing the common humanity we share with people from all walks of life.
Makes sense.
He also highlights the need to address the root causes of violence, like poverty, inequality, and injustice.
It sounds like a multifaceted approach is needed.
It does.
Yeah, both on an individual and societal level.
Absolutely. It requires a deep understanding of both the biological and social forces that shape our behavior.
Yeah, and I think that's what Sapolsky's book does so well.
It does.
Gives us a framework for understanding ourselves and each other,
Yeah.
for seeing, the complexities of human nature.
It's a roadmap for navigating the human experience.
This whole journey through the biology of human behavior has been so eye-opening.
It has.
From, the way our neurons fire, to the influence of hormones and genes, to the powerful impact of culture and environment.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of ground.
We've really uncovered so many layers of what makes us tick.
Peeling back the layers.
What stands out to you as the most important takeaway from all of this?
For me, it's the realization that we're not just puppets controlled by our biology.
Okay.
We have the capacity for conscious choice, for empathy, for cooperation.
We can build a better world?
We can, and understanding the biological and social influences on our behavior doesn't excuse harmful actions,
Right.
but it does give us a better roadmap for making more informed decisions,
Yeah.
for building a more just and compassionate society.
That's such a powerful message. This whole deep dive has been so fascinating.
It's been a pleasure.
And it's definitely given me a lot to think about.
Yeah.
If our brains can be influenced by things we're not even aware of,
Yeah.
by those subconscious cues and biases.
Right, it's those hidden forces.
What can we do to cultivate more conscious awareness and compassion?
That's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah, in our everyday lives.
And the Sapolsky reminds us, it's not about denying our biology,
Okay.
but about understanding it.
Right.
It's about harnessing the power of our biology for good and creating a world where our best qualities can flourish.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the biology of human behavior.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope you've gained some new insights and perspectives, and maybe even a little more understanding of yourselves and the world around you.
Keep exploring.
Keep questioning, keep learning, and keep striving to be the best versions of yourselves.